It's happening! It's like magic! You guys, hello and welcome. I'm here at Ziva Meditation. I'm Emily Fletcher. I'm with the amazing, brilliant, genius even, Max Lugavere.
Wow.
What?
Genius.
I dropped the G word.
You dropped the G word. I'm humbled.
Welcome to Ziva.
Thank you for having me. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I love this space. I feel instantly at peace whenever I walk into your front door.
You were at our opening party.
Yeah, I was. It was amazing. You guys have grown so much. It's so incredible. You're doing such good in the world. I'm just so excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I'm excited for you. Max has a lot of exciting news coming up. But first, I wanted to take a minute and I wanted to welcome you guys to our brand new Ziva Tribe. This is the first time we're doing a public Facebook group. And we launched it yesterday, and we have over 1,000 members already in 24 hours. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are stars. This is happening because of your enthusiasm, from you sharing it with your friends and family. And the cool thing about this group is that it's going to be for meditators. It's going to be for people who've already graduated from our online and live courses, but it's also for the meditation curious. What? When you're like, wait, I've heard about the science. I think I want to meditate, but I'm not really sure. Let me see if my friends are doing it. Let me see some real experiences from real life people. And so this is going to be a great way for people to cross-pollinate, for meditators to share their experience, for meditation curious people to ask their questions. And you guys, a lot of you guys have answered some questions when you asked to join the group, and we've been so fascinated to see what it is that you're wanting to manifest in your life, what your challenges are. So we'll be talking about some of that today.
It's awesome. That's actually how I started. I was meditation curious. I came at it from a place of being pretty well versed about the science, but never actually having done it until you taught me. And now it's something that I do fairly regularly. I mean, I'm trying to be even more regular about my meditation practice, but it's been
Call me, I'll help you.
Yeah, of course, I know, but it's been immensely helpful to me. You know.
In what ways? How has it shifted things for you?
Well, I mean, the daily practice is, in terms of like ritualizing it, that's been very useful. But I also now know how to dose meditation, sort of as if it were like a supplement, like vitamin M.
Vitamin M is a brilliant name. I might steal that for a book one day.
Go for it. But yeah, like I recognize in my own brain, like when I need it, when the static starts to get too loud. And I'm losing track of that central voice that has guided me my whole life.
What do you call that central voice for you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just sort of like, I feel like there's a number of names for it. True North, I don't know.
Intuition, gut,
yeah.
Charm.
Yeah, instinct. But that can sort of get drowned out by the noise of modern life, and especially depending on what industry you work in. I mean, we all have our version of the static. I come from a background of working in Hollywood, in journalism and media. And, in Hollywood, you have to get really used to rejection, being told no constantly. I mean, that's like sort of the problem with working in the industry. But I've done really well for myself, just sort of like ignoring that rejection, or just sort of persevering through it and thinking of, the difficulties and the challenges as being speed bumps rather than gates. But yeah, I mean, everybody has bouts of anxiety. Sometimes we're conscious of the source of that anxiety. Other times we're not. I can become anxious from just too much ambient noise. I live in New York City, as do you, and then the noise pollution is a major problem. And I feel that, it can activate a sort of fight or flight response in my body, completely involuntarily. And, meditation is something that like allows you to press the reset button on your consciousness so that you can actually get shit done. And so in that sense, I've been able to dose it. Like I recognize when I need it. The same way that like if I'm feeling stiff, I know because I do yoga, I know the exact stretch to do for whatever part of my body is feeling stiff. Meditation really it gives me a vocabulary with which to understand tension in my head, which is really good.
Right on.
Really useful.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
So we're going to chat with Max a little bit. I'm going to ask him all about what the top foods are to eat for brain health. Max actually has a book coming up. It's his first book. I have a really strong suspicion it's going to be a New York Times bestselling book. Knock on wood and bricks.
Knock on wood.
But it's coming out March 20th, and this is actually your first live interview about it.
It is.
Yeah?
It definitely is.
You heard it here first, kids. This is pretty exclusive access. We're not even going to reveal the name of the book.
We won't reveal the name, but we're just going to say that it is the definitive guide to making your brain work better using simple diet and lifestyle hacks, and also to help shield your brain against neurodegenerative disease and cognitive aging, which nobody wants.
Yeah. So actually, I'd like to ask you, why are you so passionate about teaching people about neurodegenerative diseases?
Yeah, well, that is, for me, a very simple answer. My background is journalism, but I became obsessed with learning everything that I possibly could about how diet and lifestyle affect brain function and brain health when my mom, 8 years ago now, started showing signs of memory loss. And I didn't know it at the time, but she was showing the earliest symptoms of what ultimately developed into a very niche form of dementia. So my mom has dementia. It's horrible. And I see it every day, and every time I'm around her, I just become more and more fixated with understanding as much as I can about the brain, and also getting everything that I'm learning, teaching everything that I'm learning out to people of all ages, because they found that in many instances, dementia begins in the brain decades before the first symptom of memory loss. Mm-hmm. So when we take Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common form of dementia, Alzheimer's disease begins in the brain 30 to 40 years before the first symptom. In fact, there are some biomarkers, meaning things that doctors can measure in the blood and on brain scans, evident in people that are associated with Alzheimer's disease as young as the 20s, the second decade of life. So to me, this is really something that millennials need to know about. And for me, I think the challenge has been finding a way to Trojan horse this notion of dementia prevention into the minds of people that didn't even know that they were interested in dementia prevention. So I mean, obviously many people are touched by dementia, so those people are going to be attuned to what I have to say about preventing it, because if you are aware that you have a risk factor, suddenly you're interested in what I can do to mitigate my risk. But ultimately everybody's at risk, and what I've found over the course of writing the book is that the same things that you can do that will shield your brain against dementia also make it work better in the here and now. So when we're talking about working memory, your ability to receive and manipulate new information and spit it back out, whether in your project proposal or on a presentation that you're working on or in your studies, that depends on the healthy functioning of your brain. Mm-hmm. And then there's executive function, which is one of the most important, if not the most important, determining factor of your success, even more so than IQ. Executive function relates to everything from decision making, planning, even aspects of personality. And executive function is heavily influenced by the inputs that we, feed our brains by way of what we eat, and often the things that we do in our lifestyles. So I like to say that Genius Foods.
We're laughing because
that's the name of the book.
That's the name of the book, you guys. Yeah. You literally heard it here first.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Yeah, it's basically the owner's manual for your brain.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about, we're just going to say it because cat's out of the bag.
Cat's out of the bag.
It's called Genius Foods, which is, I think, a genius title. So what are some examples of genius foods? Let's say, so here at Ziva, we work a lot. We work probably too much for meditation teachers. But we're here at the studio teaching a lot, and we do a lot of events. So let's say we wanted to stock our fridge or our cabinets with some healthy office snacks.
Yeah.
What would you recommend?
Well, definitely I recommend to people that they consume a half to a whole avocado every single day.
Nailing it, I do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, people tend to know that avocados are good for you, right? People, especially on Instagram these days, are obsessed with avocados. But actually, I think it's really helpful to know not just the foods that are good for you, but why they're good for you. When you actually look at an avocado, it kind of looks like a bomb, like something that would drop from the sky. I think of avocados as being the bombs that we drop on inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain, which drives aging. So by eating an avocado every day, you're basically like taking a fire extinguisher to inflammation and helping your brain actually process better. It makes your brain cells more efficient. And this is because of two things. The fact that per capita, avocados contain more fat-protecting antioxidants than any fruit or vegetable. these are really important for your brain because your brain is constructed of fat, and particularly a very delicate kind of fat. So the antioxidants, the phytonutrients in avocados protect the structures in your brain from aging and inflammation. And the other thing is that avocados are an amazing source of two powerful carotenoids, which are basically fat-soluble pigments that have been shown in recent studies to improve the processing speed of young and healthy college-age people. So these are not people that have cognitive impairment. These are people like you and me that just want their brains to work better. They found that these carotenoids, which are abundant in avocados, actually boost the speed of your brain, like giving it like a processing speed upgrade, which is awesome.
See, I love this, and this is so in line with meditation. So think about if you meditate in the morning and then have avocado in your smoothie or avocado in your salad, you're basically going to be a superhero. Because like at Ziva, as you guys know, we're all about meditation for better performance. I think gone are the days that people are waiting until they're in rock bottom or they're just spinning out before they even try meditation. I think we're starting to understand now that meditation really is a performance enhancing tool. And the whole gig there, as you were saying, you're like clearing up that white noise, you're starting to listen to your own intuition, you're improving your executive function. So if you're fueling your brain with the meditation by giving it deep rest, and then you're actually fueling your brain with the foods that you eat, think about how precipitously the quality of your life can improve, right? But if the reality is if you're feeding your brain junky thoughts and if you're feeding your brain junky food, it's no surprise that you're having a junky output or a junky experience, right? Like as we change the projector, the projection changes. What a lot of us are trying to do is have a rom-com of a life and we have a horror flick playing on our brains. And you can't do that. You can't paint a happy face on a movie screen when you've got this horror flick going on. So we really have to optimize things internally, and meditation is obviously one way to do that, to eradicate the stresses, not only from the right now, but all those stresses that we've been collecting in our cells, like actually in our nervous systems, which is impacting how much mental energy we have for the task at hand. If your body is constantly reviewing the past and rehearsing the future, which is what stress, anxiety, and depression are, we have less energy for that executive function. So if you meditate, you're priming your brain for optimal performance, and then you're feeding it these foods. It's really, it feels miraculous what happens to the change in your presence and performance, but it's not a miracle. And I think that Max does such a beautiful job, and you do such a great job of explaining the science in a way that's really easy to relate and easy to understand.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're amazing.
We're awesome, you guys. No, but I think that's why we're drawn to each other, because we're like sort of secret nerds, but then we like to deliver stuff in a way that feels fun and relatable. And honestly, I have to say, I had no idea that biomarkers were detectable in people as early in their 20s and 30s until I met you. And that made me really curious about, well, what are my biomarkers? And am I acting in ways that's increasing my neurogenesis, or am I acting in ways that's decreasing my neurogenesis? And the reality is, what I'm starting to learn about neurogenesis, which is simply the brain's ability to generate new brain cells, is that it's really a whole pie. You have to have all the pieces of the pie. That's exercise, meditation, sunlight, food, fats, sex, relationships. And if you just have, and I am guilty of this, where I'm like, well, I'll just meditate, and it doesn't matter what I eat, or I'll work all the time and fly everywhere, and then I end up in trouble. But when I realize, when I'm really taking care of myself and really nourishing the whole pie, and then I use meditation as the icing on the pie, I should have said cake as an analogy, then I feel like I have a superpower. Versus if I'm relying too heavily on one or the other and letting the other pieces of the pie go away, then life is not as fun.
Yeah, chronically elevated cortisol, which is the body's waking hormone, but it becomes elevated when we're chronically stressed out. The brain actually responds to chronically elevated cortisol as if it were an infection.
Really?
The brain becomes inflamed. Yeah, and chronically elevated cortisol, definitely impairs the brain's ability to create new neurons. So, that's the beauty of the principle of synergy. 1 + 1 = 3. And if you're eating, you could be eating an avocado every single day, but if you are in a horrible relationship that you're, stuck in, or if you work under a horrific boss, or if you're, in one of these situations where you're just chronically stressed out and you're not finding a way of dealing with that stress and contextualizing it with meditation, you're not going to be seeing the results of eating that avocado. You really have to check all the boxes, We're complex, multifactorial organisms, and we're highly sensitive to the inputs that we feed our bodies and brains. And stress is one of those things that's an indiscriminate killer. It's so bad for us.
Doctors are calling stress the black plague of our century.
Yeah.
And I recently found out that stress is responsible for somewhere between 80 to 90% of all doctor's visits. I'll say that again for dramatic effect. Stress is responsible for 80 to 90% of all doctor's visits, which was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, it's, I mean, think about it. When you're stressed out, your body, we've inherited these stress responses from, our ancestors who, when they were stressed out, it was for a good reason, usually. They were either running from a predator or they were running after their food. Today we get stressed out from things that really don't have that much of an impact in terms of our life. It has an impact in terms of our maybe quality of life or other things that we value on paper. But our bodies, our biology responds in exactly the same way. So when we get stressed out because we just had an argument with our significant other, your blood actually starts to thicken in preparation for an impending blood loss. So, I mean, unless you're in a really bad relationship, I don't anticipate a blood loss when you get into an argument with your significant other. But your body basically prepares the exact same way. And over time, that creates, disease, chronic disease. It can put you at risk for stroke right there, So this is highly problematic, and it is. I do, buy into that notion that it is sort of like a modern plague.
Mm-hmm. We had a police officer take the course at Ziva once. It was a woman, and she said, when I was talking about how when the body gets stressed, the blood thickens and coagulates to prepare for a predatory attack, so that if you get bitten into by a saber-toothed tiger, you don't bleed to death. And she looked at me, she goes, "Oh, that's why they train you not to get shivved from behind." I was like, oh,
wow.
Good point. Because if you get stabbed from behind, you'll bleed out because you don't have time to launch into fight or flight.
Oh my God, wow.
Whereas if you get stabbed from the front, then you're like, oh, that's scary, and your blood thickens. But the thing is, to your point, if you're getting stressed about things that are not actually life-threatening, if that blood is thickening and coagulating without a need for it, and if you're never actually outrunning the tiger or fighting the tiger, then that thickened blood can actually lead to heart disease. And a thickening of the arteries.
Yeah.
So I actually am going to ask Max a favor. I'm about to walk Max through all of my supplements, and I want to hear his take on things. Max is sort of the supplement king. We had a bit of a supplement party in LA a few days ago.
Supplement party.
We were at a friend's house, and they're both, she and her now husband are both in the wellness space. So they had hundreds and hundreds of supplements. And I'm sure you agree with this, but I think that it's best to get your nutrients from food whenever possible. But the reality is a lot of our soil has been depleted. If we're not eating organic foods, or if the soil has been over-farmed, then a lot of the nutrients that we used to get simply from food we aren't getting anymore. And so it's oftentimes good to supplement some things. So I'm going to share with Max my supplements that I take every day.
Oh man, I'm going to do a critique.
And I'm going to get the yay or nay. Okay.
All right.
So I should also tell you guys that I'm 38 years old. I'm a 38-year-old lady in pretty good health. I just got a life insurance test and a disability insurance test, and I'm in the top 0.05% percentile of health.
Sick.
And I was pretty proud of that. But also, it's possible that my husband and I might be thinking about having a baby time soon, which I also think can impact the type of supplements you want to take. So for my ladies out there, and even the gentlemen, if you're thinking about having a child soon, you don't want to wait until you get pregnant to start thinking about prenatal health. It's you very much want to think about your body like the soil, even when you're preparing to conceive. Because, and meditation, it's crazy, but we have 70 Ziva babies that have been born in the past few months. Meditation can very much increase your fertility. So friends, if you're not looking to get pregnant, you need to wrap it up when you start a meditation practice, because it really can increase your fertility. But to the supplement piece, the way I like to think about it is that you want to really fertilize the soil. You want to have very fertile soil. You want your body to be so nutrient rich. You maybe want to have even a little extra weight on you, a little extra fat on you when you're trying to conceive, because if you're underweight or undernourished, then the body thinks that it's in a time of famine, which is not a great time to procreate. Also, I would recommend, if you're on birth control, that you get off of it at least 6 months to a year before trying to conceive. And any other pharmaceuticals that you can wean off of before conception is a good idea. So anyway, here we go.
Boom.
Okay, so this yellow one here, this is, can you see that it's yellow?
Yeah.
This is CoQ10.
CoQ10, interesting.
Yeah. Talk to me.
Well, CoQ10 is really good, but the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 is ubiquinol. I don't know what that is. If that's pure CoQ10, you could be doing better by taking a ubiquinol supplement.
Oh, what's ubiquinol?
It's basically a reduced form of CoQ10, which is just more a lot more bioavailable.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Thank you.
But CoQ10 is really important for energy metabolism in the brain. It's an antioxidant, and also, if you're on a particularly for people who are on statin drugs, you definitely need to supplement with CoQ10 because statins impair your body's ability to create CoQ10. It depletes your brain cells of CoQ10.
What's a statin?
So statins are a very frequently prescribed type of drug that reduces your body's production of cholesterol.
Oh, right.
So it lowers cholesterol for many people.
Okay.
You know, we can talk about that, but that's... too many people will prescribe that, and if you do happen to be on one of those drugs, which you can tell the chemical names end in statin, lovastatin, rovastatin, you definitely want to be supplementing with ubiquinol, which is the reduced and more bioavailable form of CoQ10.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have a change to make already. Okay, this one is our trusty vitamin C.
Vitamin C is pretty good.
Pretty good. All right. We have
Although you eat a lot of vegetables, so I wouldn't say that you necessarily need a vitamin C supplement.
Okay.
Vitamin C is found pretty commonly in the food supply.
Okay. Should I skip it or should I take it?
Well, take it because it's not going to harm you.
Okay.
Unless you were an endurance athlete and just finished an endurance workout.
I did not, and I am not.
Okay. Because
If sitting quietly in a chair means endurance, then I'm nailing it. But if not, then no.
Vitamin C is fine. I don't personally supplement with vitamin C because I get it from food.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really interesting research that if you are an athlete, one of the mechanisms by which exercise benefits our health is that it creates a momentary surge of free radicals, and those free radicals act as a sort of signaling mechanism to our bodies that cause our bodies to adapt and grow stronger. That momentary increase in those reactive oxygen species are actually really important as a stimulus. And studies have shown that when people take high dose antioxidant vitamins like vitamin C immediately following a strenuous workout, that their level of adaptation actually decreases, meaning they, compared to like a control group, they end up less strong on their follow-up workouts. So,
fascinating.
Yeah, so you just want to be really careful about, indiscriminately taking antioxidant supplements because to some degree, oxidants are an important signaling mechanism in the body.
What would be other antioxidant supplements that you should avoid after a strenuous workout?
The research I've seen only used vitamin C, but I think it's plausible that that other vitamins would do the same. I've only seen that
On C.
occur.
Okay.
With vitamin C.
Okay, so this one is folate.
Folate's good, prevents neural tube defects, which is important. It's also really important for methylation and
neural tube defects in babies. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Babies, yeah. Preventing birth defects. You want to make sure that you're taking the activated form of folate, which is methylfolate, which you might be.
I am.
Okay, that's good because a significant portion of the population doesn't fully metabolize B vitamins. So your typical form of folate that you get in like a cheap over-the-counter prenatal supplement would be folic acid. Mm-hmm. And many people, like a significant enough number of people, don't properly metabolize folic acid that I would recommend.
Well, because it doesn't occur in nature, right? Folic acid is an adaptation of folate.
Exactly. Yeah, folic acid is a completely synthetic form of folate.
And they did that PS, like you'll see like sometimes milk or orange juice is like, or even cereal is like fortified with folic acid, and they did that back in like I think the 70s or 80s because a lot of women weren't getting enough nutrients in their diet when they were pregnant, and it was causing like a pretty severe like neural tube defect in babies. But the trick is, like we are so wont to do in the West, instead of actually solving the problem, instead of actually putting more folate in our diets or supplementing with an actual bioavailable or organic version of folate, we adapted it into a synthetic form and then started jamming it into orange juice and cereal and then thinking that was enough. But it's not the same thing. And as you were saying, a lot of people's bodies can't. That's the mother effort gene.
Yes,
right? Okay.
yes. If you carry the the mother effer MTHFR gene mutation, which I actually carry. So I've become really interested in this. And also there's some research that show that mothers that had higher levels of folate give birth to babies that have longer telomeres, which is actually very interesting. Telomeres are one of the few known or proposed, rather, biomarkers of aging. And generally, longer telomeres are better than shorter telomeres because telomeres tend to shorten with age, and they sort of provide a sort of shield to our chromosomes against inflammation. And so, generally speaking, longer telomeres seems to be better. So yeah, supplementing with folate is a very good idea.
Also, some interesting science coming out saying that, well, stress can obviously, well, I don't know if this is obvious or not, but stress can shorten your telomeres. And here's my analogy. I don't think it's mine. I think I learned it from Elizabeth Blackburn, the woman who just won the Nobel Prize. She wrote a book called, well, she and her partner wrote a book called The Telomere Effect. And the analogy that she uses, which I think is very good to understand what telomeres are, is that if you think about your DNA as a shoelace, then the telomere is like the little plastic casing on the end of the shoelace. And so if that telomere unravels, then your actual shoelace, your DNA, is more likely to unravel. It's more susceptible. And that can impact your chronological age, that can impact your death date. And so you want to make sure that your telomeres are healthy. Now, to my knowledge, there's not too much you can do to actually, this is a question. I don't know the answer to this. Are there things you can do to strengthen your telomeres, or are the telomeres a marker of how stressed or healthy your diet is? How stressed you are, how healthy your diet is?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that they've shown that you can activate an enzyme called telomerase, which lengthens your telomeres with, I think meditation. I would have to review the literature. But yeah, I'm pretty sure meditation, exercise. Telomeres are very receptive to our diets and our lifestyles because one of their main functions, it's believed, is to protect our chromosomes against inflammation. So the more inflammatory of a diet and lifestyle you live, the shorter your telomeres are going to be over time.
And one way to think about inflammation, and this is certainly the way we think about it in Ayurvedic medicine. So Ayurveda is an ancient system of healing. It's sort of the sister science to the meditation that I teach. And Veda means knowledge, and Ayur means longevity. And I think that Ayurveda is going to be our next sort of like trend in the health world. You know, first it was yoga, now it's meditation, and I think Ayurveda is going to be next. And when Max and I were first becoming friends, we would geek out, and he would talk to me about all the like Western science and all the scientific terms for things, and I would tell him the Ayurvedic terms for the same thing.
So cool.
Yeah, it's so cool, because the reality is they're saying the same thing, but they're just using different terms. They're coming at it from different points of view. But Veda means knowledge, and Ayur means longevity. So Ayurveda is the knowledge of longevity. And the reality is you can't live a long life if you're dealing with inflammation, and because your telomeres shorten if you're inflamed, and then that degenerates your DNA. But in Ayurveda, inflammation is the basis of all disease. And the things that you can do to inflame yourself are be stressed, right? Because if you're stressed, then your body's releasing adrenaline and cortisol, which are acidic in nature. So you can think about acid in the body similarly to inflammation. Like acid can create inflammation. Like lactic acid, when you're sore in your muscles, your muscles get inflamed, they get swole. If you're stressed, then you have acid in your body, cortisol and adrenaline. If you eat acidic foods, if you eat like meat that is not organic, meats that not... like red meat, grain-fed meats will have a lot of omega-6s instead of a lot of omega-3s. You're actually doing damage instead of helping yourself. Right. And so there's little things you can make, there's little tweaks you can make to change in your diet that make a huge, huge difference. Okay, so a couple more supplements.
Okay.
And then okay.
So did you take your folate?
Not yet, but I will. I'm going to have you talk about these and then I'll take it. So these two are prenatals.
Okay.
This brand is Thorne.
Mm-hmm. Thorne's a good brand.
Thorne. I got it at the Erewhon in LA.
Nice.
It's AKA my Wonderland.
Mine too.
And so this has a significant amount of D, of folate. So I'm probably might be double doing the folate, which I should probably check. What else is that? It has a decent amount of C in it, so I'm definitely double doing the C. Has a little bit of magnesium, some zinc. It's like a multivitamin, but specializing in the things that you would need prenatally.
All sounds good. I would definitely not go overboard with the folate, as you mentioned. And I would also, if you're supplementing with folate, especially a lot of it, definitely would take a B12 supplement, because having high levels of folate and low B12 can actually accelerate cognitive decline. So you want to make sure that, you're taking the complete B complex.
I do think this has a pretty complete B complex in it as well.
Cool.
But I only take my folate one like every other or every third day.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that you need a ton of folate. You're probably also, knowing you're health conscious. You eat, folate is commonly found in, it's actually named for foliage. It's found in leaves. So when you eat a salad, dark leafy greens, things like that, you're getting a lot of folate. I would just want to make sure that you're not taking a mega dose. Mega doses of B vitamins, it's unclear as to what the mechanism is, but there have been some links made between, excessive folic acid, which, as we mentioned, is the synthetic form, and cancer risk. Recently, a very interesting study came out linking extremely high vitamin B12 with lung cancer risk. So you don't want to, it's common, I think, in supplements to provide like mega doses of these B vitamins. B12 is a little different because a lot of people have absorption issues with B12, but still, I don't think that you want to get your levels checked periodically by a doctor.
Yeah, so do you recommend just going to your regular general practitioner, or can you do that like blood tests with someone online? Like, how do you check your levels?
I haven't found a good lab to do blood tests, just like, I would be doing them once a month, if it were up to me. But generally, like once or twice a year I go to a physician and I ask them to run tests on vitamin D, my folate B12 levels, what else? I ask them to do an NMR so I can get a really good look at my blood lipids, metabolic markers, fasting insulin, fasting blood sugar. These are all really important things that you want to keep tabs on.
And our friend Robin Berzin, she's I think revolutionizing the face of healthcare. She has a company called Parsley Health. And they're in New York and San Francisco so far, but they also practice telemedicine. I think the trick is you just would have to go and get your blood drawn somewhere at a lab, but then they can get the results of your blood and they can walk you through, and it's like 140 different markers that they're looking at, all of the things you're talking about, so that you're not just guessing blindly in the dark. You're not just, well, I think B12 is good for me, or maybe I want folate. Like, you actually want to know what your body needs, what you maybe have too much of, what you're deficient in, and supplement according to that. Okay, last one, and now I'm like not going to take my folate. I'm just going to put it aside. Okay, last one, and then we can move on to something else. This is a prenatal DHA, EPA DHA. So it's a fish oil.
Great.
But you definitely, if you're wanting to conceive or are already pregnant, you don't want to use just regular fish oil, and you want to be really careful of the fish you consume because of the mercury content in our oceans. And now with like radiation levels of the fish, like, we just live in a world where we have to be cognizant of the environmental toxins and pollutions. But this is Nordic Naturals,
good brand,
prenatal EPA DHA.
Good brand. Definitely recommend omega-3 fatty acids. Nordic Naturals is great. I think most of their fish oils come in the triglyceride form, which is very good, very well studied, safe, probably beneficial. I would also recommend maybe taking some krill oil. Krill oil can be good. It provides a form of DHA. You get more EPA in this, but the DHA that krill oil provides is probably a little bit more bioavailable to the brain because it comes in a form called the phospholipid form, which is basically your brain and the brain of a developing fetus. They integrate these fatty acids into the cell membranes in this structure called a phospholipid. And basically when you intake krill oil fat, it's already in that orientation, in that structure, so the brain just sucks it up and integrates it. Whereas it's got to go through a number of metabolic steps when you consume it via triglyceride form. So other great food sources of phospholipids. If you eat fatty fish, you're going to get some phospholipid DHA, but roe, like salmon roe, like the big fish eggs that you get in sushi restaurants, those are rich in phospholipid DHA. So definitely eat a lot of that.
Also, I'm happy to report that I have krill oil being delivered to my house today.
Yeah.
And also, it's good for prenatal EPAs and DHAs because, or whichever one you just said, EPAs?
DHA.
DHAs. It's good for prenatal DHAs because krill are the teeny tiny little microorganisms that whales eat.
Yeah.
So like basically, the bigger the fish is, the more you have to worry about mercury. So like if you have high doses of mercury in your system, you would want to avoid tuna. like even any sort of shark, which you don't really want to be eating shark anyway, but the bigger fish you want to avoid if you're worried about mercury.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just checking, see what else we want to... Oh, I have one announcement before, and I would like to also take some questions from you guys. So if you have questions...
Yeah, shoot us your questions.
Yeah, type them in. You can even say hello, tell us where you're watching from. I'm really so thrilled that this group has grown to 1,000 in only one day. I think this is the fastest we've ever grown anything at Ziva.
Amazing.
But just type us your questions. If you have meditation questions, if you have supplement questions, or not even... I mean, Max is very knowledgeable about exercise, intermittent fasting, supplements, brain health, food. So anything, this is your chance to ask.
Yes.
And I also wanted to make an announcement. We're going to start doing Facebook Lives in here pretty regularly. I mean, not Max and I. Thank you for being here today. You're
Whenever
welcome.
you want to invite me back.
Anytime you want, you're welcome. But I'm going to be launching a whole series, a month-long series on forgiveness. Forgiveness, even if you don't love me anymore.
Oh, nice voice you have.
Thank you. So we're doing a month-long series on forgiveness starting the week after Thanksgiving. And then every Thursday at 2 p.m., we're going to be doing a Facebook Live. And there's going to be a whole forgiveness audio that you can download. It's a whole thing. But all you have to do is just stay tuned in this tribe. And if you want to make sure you get email updates from us, you can join our list over at Ziva, Z-I-V-A, meditation.com. Mm-hmm. I also highly recommend that you guys follow Max on social media. He's so generous on his social media, his Twitter, his Instagram, his Facebook. He's always teaching. And I learned so much just from your social media accounts.
Man. Well,
so
that's
thank
good to
you.
hear.
Also, I hadn't said this before, but Max is a regular guest on Dr. Oz. You're there every day.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. I'm there a lot, which is amazing. I get to reach a whole new audience, which is great.
Yeah. So how has that changed your life, your career, being on the show? And when did you start?
It's opened a lot of doors. I've learned a lot. I've honed my craft as a TV, media, on-camera personality, definitely. Mm-hmm. It's made me feel... Yeah, there's so many things that it's done. It's made me feel just really strongly about how desperately people need this information, conveyed accurately and responsibly, but also with the optimism that the material warrants. But yeah, I love it. I don't know what I would have said if, 3 years ago you would have told me that I would have ended up becoming the go-to brain health expert on the Dr. Oz show. I probably would have thought you were crazy. But yeah, I love it. When I'm doing the show, I really feel like I'm doing what I am meant to be doing, and it really, honestly, makes me want to do it all the time. So I'm on it. I think usually they call me in once every other week, and it's the kind of thing that I ultimately would want to do every day because I love it.
Right on.
Yeah,
I love that. I would watch you every day.
So yeah, maybe one day there will be a show, a Max show in the cards. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel that. I think it's coming.
I think it's coming. I'm just going to put that out there.
Okay, so do we have any?
Yeah.
Oh, we do? Oh, I can't see them. I don't see your questions.
Any food's good for people with ADHD?
What kind of foods?
What foods are good for people with ADHD?
Oh, okay, so we're getting some questions in, so you guys can just type in your questions. For some reason, we're not seeing them, but type them in. And so the question is, what types of foods are good for ADHD?
Definitely, I would say fish oil has been shown in some studies to improve executive function. ADD is considered sort of a problem with executive function. We could argue about that because I think ultimately the problem of ADHD is more, unique brains sort of tried by the modern world to squeeze inside of a box of routine jobs and one-size-fits-all education. I think, honestly, a person with ADHD would have been the ultimate hunter-gatherer. And today they suffer under the, tranquility of repetition. But for somebody with ADHD, it could be hard getting your brain to focus on one thing for 8 hours a day. So, there have been some studies to show that omega-3 fats benefit, executive function, and that by limiting omega-6 fats, you can also, because inflammation tends to make things worse in the brain, tends to promote the, onset of or worsening of various mental states. And so by optimizing your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, eating more omega-3s, eating fewer omega-6 fats, That's been shown to help.
How do you eat omega-6s? Like, what should we be avoiding that's in omega-6s?
So definitely, you want to avoid grain and seed oils like canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil. But these fats are hidden everywhere in the modern food supply. So is it safe to assume that you've got a lot of New York-based
Actually, we have people all over the world. Yeah.
Got it. Well, there's a growing salad chain in the U.S. called Sweetgreen, which
I taught the whole executive team to meditate.
You did?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was so fun.
Yeah, so Sweetgreen is a salad chain that I really like. I go there all the time. But one of the things that I would recommend avoiding if you're at Sweetgreen is their salad dressings, which are made primarily, the first most prevalent ingredient in their house-made salad dressings is grapeseed oil. Now, when I say optimize your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, it's speculated that our hunter-gatherers ate them in a ratio of 1-to-1. Today we eat omega-6 fats in a ratio with omega-3 fats in a proportion of 25-to-1. So we're over-consuming omega-6 fats by an order of magnitude. 25-to-1. But here's the thing. Grapeseed oil in Sweetgreen salad dressings and elsewhere in the food supply, it's not just Sweetgreen that's using them, has an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 700-to-1.
What?
Yeah, 700-to-1.
Just that particular grapeseed oil? All grapeseed oil.
Grapeseed oil.
See, now I had heard, and this is great, this is why this is so good to learn about this stuff, is that I had heard a couple years ago the grapeseed oil was good for you.
It's not good for you.
It's not good for you.
Not good
All
for you.
right, friends, you heard it here first.
Yeah, it's business and marketing and industry that's trying to convince you that it's good for you. Why? Because grapeseed oil is incredibly cheap to produce. Grapeseed oil is made using something that used to be thrown away during the winemaking process, the seeds of grapes. And some brilliant marketer, businessman, whatever, saw these things that they were throwing away, and they were like, we can press these seeds and extract an oil from them that we can make tasteless and then sell super cheaply and convince the American people that it's healthy. But it's not healthy.
So I have this theory that if we could eradicate greed from the planet, we would eradicate a lot of unnecessary suffering. And I think this shows up big time in our food industry.
Oh, the food industry does not care about your health.
They don't care.
They don't care.
And if you look at it, it's no longer like mom and pop farmers. It's no longer like mom and pop restaurants. Most of the restaurants where we eat, most of the grocery stores, most of the food that we're getting is from giant, big, multinational corporations. And that there's a cost to that. They will over farm soils. They will treat their animals inhumanely. They will not care about the pesticides that are on the food. And even there's this we could go down a deep rabbit hole, and I don't want to be discouraging, but I want to encourage everyone to be super conscious, super diligent when you're making decisions. Read the labels, do your research. Are there any apps that you recommend for people to check out labels or brands to avoid or no
apps. I mean, I try to put a lot of good information on my blog and share via Instagram. But yeah, no good apps. But just going back to the question about ADHD, it's very plausible that eating a salad at Sweetgreen when doused with that dressing could give you brain fog and make it even more difficult to pay attention for somebody with ADHD.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I recommend, keep going to Sweetgreen, but make a custom salad dressing with extra virgin olive oil, balsamic vinegar, which actually has a bunch of interesting nutrients in it, lemon, and salt and pepper. Your brain will thank you.
Delicious.
Yeah.
So there's some more questions.
What would be the one food/supplement that everyone should take to improve their brain health?
Ooh, okay. So what would be the one food/supplement that everyone should take to improve their brain health?
Man, well, I don't believe that there's a one size fits all prescription for everybody, but I would say that most people would probably benefit from a vitamin D supplement. We spend a lot of time indoors these days, and those of us who live in northern latitudes, if we have darker skin color, if we're older, if we're a little bit overweight, we synthesize vitamin D less efficiently. Which is an important steroid hormone in the body that regulates the expression of 1,000 genes. It's 5% of your genome is reliant on healthy levels of vitamin D. And although there's no consensus on what optimal levels are, it seems to be somewhere around 40 to 80 nanograms per deciliter.
I don't know what those words
mean. Yeah, those are basically I think it's deciliter. Yeah, that's basically when you go and you get your vitamin D levels measured at your doctor. You want to make sure that you're not deficient because vitamin D levels and the RDI, the recommended daily intake for vitamin D, is set to avoid to help the population avoid rickets, which is basically what you get when you have a vitamin D deficiency. But vitamin D is instrumental in so many other things, minimizing inflammation. We were talking about telomeres before. There's a link between vitamin D levels and telomere length. And it's also an important environmental risk factor for dementia, having low vitamin D levels. So, we spend a lot of time indoors, we cover up, it's not like we're frolicking around in an open field naked these days so much anymore.
Maybe you're not.
Unless you're lucky. Yeah. So, taking a good vitamin D3 supplement,
Or just getting more sun.
Yeah. Yeah. To that end, fish oil, I think, is probably very beneficial for most people. But that's it. I'm not a huge... I don't recommend a ton of supplements. I mean, once your diet is optimized, then we can talk, but most people supplement to sort of fix a crappy diet, and I don't think you can fix a crappy diet with supplements.
Cool. So we have time for a couple more questions, but before we start to wrap up here, I just want to say thank you so much for joining this tribe. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to be doing Facebook Lives about every week starting on November 30th. So it's Thursday, November 30th at 2 p.m. We're going to start doing those regular Facebook Lives, and the whole first series is going to be on forgiveness. And we're going to start it off with something like to call a love bomb, which is a great way to get rid of cortisol in your body and decrease inflammation, start to produce some dopamine, serotonin, and more importantly, oxytocin, which is the love chemical. Do we have a couple more questions?
Yes. Someone has contracted Lyme disease 2 years ago, and after being diagnosed with super high blood pressure, they want to know if you have any ideas for foods that might help with that. Supplements.
Okay. So someone got diagnosed with Lyme disease, and as a result of that, they now have really high blood pressure. So they're wondering if there's any foods or supplements that would help with that.
Yeah, I would say try... First of all, I'm not a medical doctor. This is not medical advice, and I don't know... Lyme disease is not my primary area of focus, but I would say look into eating a low-carb diet. When you eat a lot of carbs, your body holds on to sodium, and sodium helps expand blood volume by bringing water into your blood. And when you go on a low-carb diet, your kidneys begin to spill sodium. So actually, when you're on a low-carb diet, you require more sodium. The other thing is that eating a lot of sugar and a lot of carbs stimulates your body's fight or flight response, which increases blood pressure. Stress increases blood pressure. I think eating a lower carb diet, you'll help your body retain less sodium, which will reduce blood pressure, and also eating more vegetables and low sugar fruits as well, because these kinds of foods are high in potassium, which work in concert with sodium to maintain healthy blood pressure.
Right on.
And also, good foods to eat are foods that are high in nitrates, which improve the, generally speaking, the functioning of your blood vessels, the endothelium, which are like the one cell layer thick lining that lines all of your blood cells and contract and expand according to the various biological needs that we throw at it. And foods like beets, eating arugula, very high in dietary nitrate. Really good for blood pressure.
Shocker, we should be eating more vegetables, y'all.
Exactly.
Okay, so
I do two more.
Okay.
Does juicing eliminate the folate in leafy greens?
No, does juicing eliminate the folate in leafy greens? Good question.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say that from the Ayurvedic standpoint on juicing is that if you think about how many vegetables it takes to cram into one juice, you could never eat that much kale, that much arugula, that much food in one 10-minute sitting as you can ingest when you're juicing. So unless you're thinking about juicing like medicinally, that you need to like really supercharge your body with micronutrients, then actually juicing, specifically green juicing for people who are Vata dominant like me, that can really increase like a spike in blood sugar and can make you a little crazy, like you can spin out. Now, I'm not saying that green juice is bad for you. You just need to understand what your body type is and how you're using it. You can also mitigate that spike by putting in fat, like if you put coconut oil in it or olive oil in there, that will help to smooth out that spike. But also just think about how much saliva, how much time, how much digestion it would take you to eat all of those vegetables, and just be cognizant of that when you're juicing. Now, occasionally we're just so deficient in vegetables that when we just juice, it's like our body's so hungry for it that it absorbs it. So sometimes it's useful, but you want to think about it almost like medicine.
Word up.
Word up. And then last question.
Do you have general brands that you would recommend as go-tos for supplements, like the krill oil or vitamin D?
So do we have general brands that we recommend for supplements?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you mentioned Thorn. Thorn, I've heard from people that I respect that's a higher quality brand. Personally, my experience, and I have zero brand affiliation, I would say that Now Foods is pretty good. I would say Nutrigold is pretty good. Doctor's Best, pretty good. Nordic Naturals for fish oil, very good.
What about Jarrow?
Jarrow, I would say, is very good. Yeah, I tend to order my supplements from those brands, and I get them from Amazon. You don't want to get supplements from like your typical drugstore, CVS, for example. They get lower quality supplements there. Whole Foods has good supplements, but you tend to overpay, unfortunately. So yeah, I go to Amazon, and usually Now Foods, Nutrigold. Those are all pretty good, reputable.
Right on.
Brands.
So as you guys can see, Max is basically an encyclopedia of brain health and of knowledge about things that you can do to optimize your physical and mental performance. And so I really can't encourage you enough to check him out on social media, and more importantly, check out his book, which you heard it here literally first, you guys. You heard the title first. We let it slip out accidentally.
Yeah.
But you can look up Max Lugavere on Amazon, and you can actually pre-order the book now.
You can. It's called Genius Foods. It's on Amazon.
Food, it's on Amazon. And the cool thing is, like, I'm just going to say this because my book is coming out in January 2019, and any books that happen in the pre-sale go towards him being on the New York Times bestseller list, and that matters. Because in his first time book, he's a New York Times bestselling author. It just puts him in like a whole nother echelon. And he has so much to offer the world, so much good that he's been sharing. He gives so much away for free. And so I think let's buy his book, let's support him, let's get him on the New York Times bestseller list, and also optimize your own brain health by utilizing this stuff that he's been researching day in and day out. And like he said, he's not a doctor, but I actually think that the fact that you're not a doctor, that you are a journalist, you were a film major, but then you dedicated your whole life to reading the science, to looking at the journals, to interviewing the world's top brain experts, that like you could listen to a scientist speak and like, yeah, you'd get information, but you'd also want to fall asleep afterwards. And Max really makes it relatable and entertaining. And so I highly recommend you check out his book. The publishing date is March 20th. 7 days before my birthday. Ooh. But you can get it now on Amazon, and then join me on November 30th for what's going to kick off a series of forgiveness Facebook Lives. And I'm just so thankful that you've joined our Ziva tribe. I'm so happy to have you here. And anything else I need to say? Anything you want to say?
No, just thank you for having me. I love following your work, and you've got such an amazing audience of fans and supporters and meditators that it's just been I'm so happy to be a part of it, to be a Ziva meditator. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks.
All right, friends, happy meditating, happy eating your genius foods. To your genius, have a beautiful day, and goodbye.